All right, hello everybody. My name is David Todd.
I'm Everett Yates.
And I'm Ryan Gajda.
So our good buddy Ryan Gajda has been gracious enough to sit with us after we asked him, just a couple times, not too many, but great, gracious enough to sit with us and give some insight into his story. How he came through same school as we did, a private boarding school, but took a different route than us. Took the student athlete route. Had a little bit of a hiccup. Then leave the rest of the story to him. So I hope y'all enjoy hearing his insights, his story, and his advice. And so Ryan, how about you just kind of give us a timeline starting from high school time?
Yeah, so obviously you guys knew me at Raven Gap. Sports was pretty much my life, really.
Of course.
Yep.
Baseball, I did football, I did swimming, I ran cross country.
I forgot we did swimming together. I totally
Yeah, we did
forgot.
we did swimming junior year. Yeah, that was an interesting experience to say the least. Um, Definitely not my favorite sport I did in high school, that's for sure. So.
Not your forte.
I got progressively better as the season went on, but it wasn't really like I'm a big dude. Like it's just not going to work. Like I'm not supposed to be moving fast in the water. That's for people who look like Michael Phelps. So,
You're saying God didn't give you the swimmer's body that you deserved?
uh, I mean, I'm perfectly content with my body. You're putting words, you're putting words into my mouth.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
So yeah, but obviously like my main goal in high school was to try and play baseball in college. So, um, I wound up finding that opportunity at LaGrange, down in Georgia. And thankfully, the adjustment was really easy. Um, you know, Raven Gap was definitely a smaller high school with
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
Oh
80
yeah.
people. I don't even know how big our graduating class was. I think like 60 something.
Was it?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I always quoted 70. A little bit high. I always thought it was 70, but we had some fluctuation towards the end there.
Yeah, with like the disciplinary stuff and just different things that happen
Yeah.
in your time at Raven Gap, you always lose people, gain people.
Mm.
You know, I think we had someone come in spring of our senior year, if I remember correctly. Like,
Oh,
Mm,
or
you're
no,
probably right.
I think there's quite a few people that came and left. Honestly,
yeah.
like
So,
at least two.
like our core group from like middle school, like
Mm.
diminished. I think like me, you,
We took a picture together. Remember that? We took a
yeah,
picture
we
of
did.
everyone from middle school. I'll try and find it.
There wasn't very many of us. I think it was like 10 of us, 15 of us maybe
At
that were
15
there
at
in
the
middle school.
at the most. At the most.
Yeah, we had predominantly an international class, I'd say,
We had a
with like,
weird. We did have a very strange mix of. We had a decent sized group of whatever we got day students. Remember, we had a
yeah.
pretty decent sized group of day students, and I think that was really not the case for a lot of other classes.
Yeah, but then I like think about my brother's class and they had a ton of day students in their class. Like they had a lot in comparison to us, in my opinion.
They were also a lot closer as a class than I think we were.
That's true. I mean, like we had our little like groups and stuff of like people we'd hang out with, but it wasn't anything, like I'd hang out with you guys and then I also hung out with like freaking Morgan and DJ too because
Yeah.
of baseball.
So you
And
said the adjustment was pretty easy going from Raven Gap to Lagrange.
yeah, LaGrange is definitely a smaller private institution.
How small is
Obviously,
it? Do you know off the top of your head?
it's 2,000 students, somewhere in that ballpark.
Two
That's
I
about
thousand.
mean,
the,
that,
that's about the that's about the same size as mine.
yeah, and it's
Mm-mm-mm.
growing though. The school's changed a lot since when I first started there. Just like going back at now as an alum, I'm just like, dang, like this place has changed. Just because they've increased enrollment every single year, and there's still like a ton of room for growth. They didn't really utilize a lot of the property that the college owns. Kind of like Barry.
Mm-hmm.
Barry's got all
Mm-hmm.
that land, but the college itself is not necessarily that big. Lagrange is one in the same in that regard. But But yeah, no, I mean, starting off, obviously with Raven Gap, I felt like I was in a good place with school. No college class really my freshman year was that overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Your steel was tempered a little bit beforehand.
yeah. So, and that was good, and then baseball helped provide that structure when I first got in, to where it made, pretty easy adjustment, just like making friends and getting to know people at the university. But, you know, I didn't necessarily plan on like joining Greek life, but now that's like a big part of my story.
Really?
I
You
mean,
didn't
obviously,
plan on that? Oh,
no, that was something that, there was a couple guys on the baseball team
yeah.
and, it was just like, hey, do you want to play catch? That was like the first time I interacted with one of my chapter brothers. He's like, hey, you want to play
Mm-hmm.
catch? And then he invited me to go, hang out at his apartment. We watched football and did different stuff like that and just built this like really good friendship, with this guy named Drew Williamson. Um, and it worked out to where he's like, hey, I'm a member of a fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's like, you don't have to, do it if you don't want to, just come and check it out. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. So I went through recruitment. I was not dressed preppy. I was wearing like gym
Mm-hmm.
shorts and a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I was in high school. Like that's
Yeah.
all I really knew. So it's just like, because we had dress code at Raven Gap. So I didn't really own all like, I didn't really wear all these like nice clothes.
Yeah.
You were like
Casual
kind of done
Friday.
with it.
Yeah, casual Friday was like, jeans and t-shirt, and that was kind of where I was at, like when I was at
Yeah.
Raven Gap. So, but yeah, I went through recruitment. Was really bought in with the fraternity I wound up joining, which was Pi Kappa Phi, and it was a really good like core group of guys who just really cared a lot about each other, and you can kind of
Mm.
feel that like in the room. Everyone was really genuine. Not your, it's gonna sound cliche, but like not your stereotypical fraternity guys. Like
Not your,
in a lot of
not your
ways,
stereotypical bros.
Really?
I wouldn't say like, we very much so, looked the part, but in regards to just like our personalities and like how we treated each other. And, it was like being essentially on another sports team, but just in a different environment. Like that was just kind of the vibe that I had like playing,
Mhm.
joining the chapter. So, but yeah, I joined with 22 guys and there was only 9 active members. So
Oh
we,
wow, it's pretty
yeah,
small.
we really kind of flipped the script, in regards to, going from the smallest chapter at LaGrange
Mm-hmm.
to the largest and consistently the largest now. And they're growing. I think they're at like 52, 54 guys, which is huge for a school of LaGrange's size. So,
I mean,
um,
Sounds like it.
Greek
Yeah.
life can't have too big of a impact on campus when there's, what'd you say, 2,000 people?
yeah, I mean, it's crazy though. So LaGrange originally was an all women's college up until about the 60s.
Mm.
And
Oh wow,
then
I didn't know that.
yeah, so it's one of the oldest, colleges in the state, actually. But I mean, it's been around since like the 1800s. But it's just one of those things where it was an all women's college. I think this college started losing money, as well as the president who had interest in adding men's athletics.
Mm-hmm.
So, pretty much when men started going to the LaGrange, that's when Greek life came on. And we were the first, fraternity at LaGrange, and that was in 1969. So, and we haven't closed or anything since. So, I mean, our 50th is creeping up in 2019. So,
Nice.
um,
Cool.
yeah, so that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, so I just wanted to get really involved and like, do different things and get into leadership. So, freshman and sophomore year, I was involved with like SGA. I was involved with College
What is
Republican.
SGA? Sorry.
Yeah, please
Uh,
expound on your acronyms.
yeah, so SGA is a Student Government Association. So I was part
Oh
of,
yeah.
helping make, propose like amendments and different things to, make life for students easier at LaGrange College. So, um, that was a really cool experience. Um, Getting to plan some events for the whole college was really cool, and being a big part of that was a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, I did that, and I was involved with the fraternity at that time. I was treasurer. I was playing baseball. I did. I was involved with the College Republicans, like I mentioned earlier, as well as taking like 15 hours. And I had a job on campus. So I was a pretty busy guy my first 2 years at LaGrange. I just really stretched myself thin, it felt like at times. But, I think in looking back on it, I'd do it the same like every single time. Um, and just like growing, like going through college and like growing up, like, I started kind of realizing, sophomore year that there's more to life than baseball and that like my career was going to end at some point. But, I was like, oh, I'll play through senior year.
Yeah.
It'll all work out. I'm doing this like interview thing. The podcast interview. Oh, so yeah, this is one of my coworkers.
Roommates, everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So, what I wanted in life kind of changed, baseball wasn't the same in college. It was a lot more of like a job,
Yeah.
and it wasn't fun like it was in high school. I mean, there was definitely moments in college where I was like, this is great. I'll always remember like the first time I like came in, pitching during a game. Like I'll always remember that. I'll remember my first strikeout, like different things like that. But, I was just involved with all these other things. And I saw, potential for growth as well as like career opportunities, stemming from, you know, um, doing like focusing on like my other areas that I was doing at LaGrange. So,
Right.
I wound up quitting baseball after my sophomore year. I had some injuries. I had some different things, my shoulder's like
Yeah.
pretty shot now. So it's like not definitely the best. So, I was that was spring of my sophomore year. So it was kind of weird for a little while just because baseball was like all I'd really known for a long time. But, thankfully I had that group of guys in the fraternity that really like kind of like helped pick me up. And I had the opportunity, to run for president of the chapter. It was hard, running a group of 50 college age guys who, like to have a good time,
Little rowdy.
do reckless things. And, there's definitely a level of risk that comes with, joining a Greek organization and kind of being the head of that. Definitely is a lot of responsibility. And thankfully I had, the former president, Wade Fakeley. He was like one of my really good friends. So thankfully I was like able to use him when I needed help or had any questions. And the guys who were surrounded, by me with like all my executive council, they were all really sharp guys too. And I think we had a good year. It was definitely worth it at the end of the day. It was one of those things where I would definitely come back to my apartment sometimes and I'm like, screw this. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Whether it be, something going wrong or just, we're trying to, vote on something and it just causes conflict or, different things like that. And it was super frustrating sometimes. But, so yeah, I mean, I was in leadership in the fraternity for 3 years. I was like the new member educator in our organization. It's called Warden. I did treasurer and then I was president. And, so it was a lot, but, once again, looking back on it, I'd do it the same every single time. But yeah, which the fraternity actually, led to what I'm currently doing now, which is, I guess my role is called a leadership consultant. So, when I was leaving LaGrange, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to always do something in sports, but those opportunities are very hard to find.
Now preface this with what your degree is in.
So I studied business administration, and then, so yeah, that was kind of what I did. Pretty generalized, degree. But, thankfully it provided me the tools to kind of, have a jack of all trades type personality to where, I knew some things about like finance and accounting as well as like entrepreneurship and sports management. So, but yeah, I mean, I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was looking at grad school. That was kind of like what my parents were pushing me towards. My mom was very about, hey, you should, try and get your MBA. This is what your uncle did. Look at him now.
I remember those
Um,
conversations.
so and that was, that was definitely something to where I was looking into it. Um, I was looking at, I think, Liberty University up in Virginia. That was like one of the top ones that I really wanted to go to. But, this opportunity came up with the fraternity. So our leadership consultant at the time, Gary Stugg, who's still on staff now and someone I consider like a good friend of mine, um, he was like, hey, like, I think you're a really good leader in the chapter. You should look into this. And I was like, okay, I don't really know much about it. I don't really know what to expect, but, I'll definitely apply and interview and do all that. And,
Mm.
I went through the application process, but typically the way it works is you have one Skype interview and like one
I
in-person
hate those Skype
and like
interviews are
one
always rough.
in-person interview, as well as like you're facilitating a training session. So, but the month of January, my senior year, I went to the Philippines. I was there for a month. So, and that's when the in-person interviews was
Hmm.
during the time I was in the Philippines. So, I mean, they were completely understanding about that. But instead of me having an in-person interview, I had a second Skype interview.
Yeah.
But like the thing that was weird, it was like the most bizarre interview I think I've ever sat in. Is there was four people in the interview. So, it was
Including
four
you?
and no, five including me.
Uh,
So one person was on speakerphone,
mm-hmm.
and then I was looking directly at one person, and there was two people to his left and one to his right. So like I
A
was
little bit of
looking at this
pressure.
person, but hearing questions from all these different like angles, and the
Mm.
volume was wishy-washy, and it was just the most
Wow.
bizarre thing. But thankfully it worked out. I mean, obviously I got hired, so I was like,
Yeah.
but coming out of that, I didn't know if to make heads or tails out of it really. I was just like, damn, like I have no idea like if I'm gonna get it. I think I said the right things. Are they going to penalize me for not being there for this
Yeah.
in-person interview? I was thinking about all the factors, but thankfully and then in my head, I'm just saying, well, I'm going to do whatever I hear from first. If it's
Hmm.
grad school, I'll do that. If it's this fraternity job, I'll do that. Thankfully, I heard from the fraternity first, and I accepted pretty much right on the spot.
You,
you
you,
know,
di-
I
you didn't you didn't want to play around at all.
so
Didn't
I
want to be a
I
tease.
obviously talked. Once I got the offer, I talked it over with my parents and reviewed everything and went through the offer. Just to make sure that this was something I really wanted to do, and I wound up signing it like the next week. And so, and then, I mean, obviously I just, rode out the rest of my senior year, had fun with the guys, made some really good memories and stuff that I'll definitely like remember for the rest of my life. And it was a really good time, just enjoying college. And I felt like I hadn't really done that because
Mm.
I was like so like tied up in all these different things between being president, doing baseball, being involved with student government, like I never really had a time
Yeah.
just to like enjoy being just like one of the guys. Um, and then, I had that opportunity spring semester senior year, and it was a lot of fun. And it definitely was a good like closing act, some would
Yeah.
say, of like my
Mhm.
college career. Um, you
Right.
know, at that, when I walked across that stage, I literally knew in my head, I was like, I've done, everything that I wanted to do at LaGrange College. Like there was nothing left, no stone left unturned in my eyes. Um, I was truly happy about everything I was able to accomplish while I was there. Obviously you could always do more, but I felt like I was
Hmm.
definitely in a good place
No, but still, that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling to have.
Yeah,
yeah.
really.
So, I mean, I had personal goals, coming into LaGrange, and I was thankfully able to meet all of them, which was pretty good. So,
That's
um,
good.
but yeah, so I graduated from LaGrange May 21st of this past year, and my first day of work was May 31st.
Nice.
So I had 10 days
Wow.
between 10 days between the day I graduated and the day I started work, and I literally had to pick up and move all my stuff to Charlotte, North Carolina. and move in with a bunch of people I've never met before,
Mm-hmm.
and go to an office where I'd only met my personal leadership consultant that I'd worked with in college, and people I'd met on Skype, essentially. So like it was a very new environment.
Yeah, you were coming in pretty cold.
And the thing is like all the other guys like knew each other from the in-person interviews or,
Mm-hmm.
different things. Whereas like I didn't know anyone. So and they didn't know me. So obviously there was like a little bit of awkwardness at first,
Yeah, of course.
just getting used to living with one another and, different things like that. And, finding common ground and building friendships and all these different things. And thankfully we had all summer. So it was a summer training period. So,
Mm-hmm.
from June till about mid-August, we were in Charlotte doing training, getting prepared for the fall. So yeah, I'll get, I guess, more into like what the job is exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, essentially what it is you get assigned a region. So my region is, they call it the Gulf Coast region, but it consists of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, as well as I work with Oklahoma University and the University of South Alabama. But
All right. Not
so
not the
yeah, I
biggest
visit.
territory in the world, but definitely not the smallest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not the Pacific Northwest, but it's definitely it's a lot of driving. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
walk us through your day to day.
so yeah, I mean, pretty much like, I set up my schedule, and then I send out emails essentially just being like, hey, I'm going to be visiting X campus. So, hey, I'm visiting Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there, Sunday through Wednesday morning. Here's a list of the things that I need prior to my visit. So I typically ask for like a parking pass, a place to stay, whether it be the chapter may have an empty room at their fraternity house, or, the ones that are a little more financially stable will typically like put me up in a hotel. So,
Well, that's a plus.
uh, yeah. So then, once everything is like kind of finalized with like pre-visit stuff, I meet with every single member of their executive council. So 10 guys, and just kind of try and coach them up, try and help them, be the most successful they can be, whether it be, creating a better budget or, really working on the new member education and making sure that, they're in a good spot and having a good experience and are going to become good members in the chapter. There's some administrative stuff that we ask of them as well, whether it be, paying us, different reports and all these things. But making sure that, there's no hazing going on or,
In
you know,
today's time, that's extremely important to have under wraps.
yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah.
And then risk management too. I mean, obviously, it is a social organization. So, and we're not telling the guys not necessarily to have a good time. It's just be safe about it, and how do we make these good decisions and take these steps in the right direction. Um, so those are always fun conversations, especially at our more social universities.
Yeah.
You typically get some pushback with those conversations, but at the end of the day, you really hope that they listen to you. And I think
Yeah.
that um, my relaxed personality and my ability to like kind of connect with people has really worked well in this role, just for the fact that like I'm not sitting there as like an authoritative figure. I'm more so of like approaching it as like, hey, you're my brother.
Yeah,
And
You're you genuinely, authentically relate to their situation.
yeah. So it's a lot more of, this is what it's not, this is what you need to do. This is what I would recommend, just for the fact of like, I want to see you guys succeed and do well.
Do you ever have to lay down the law with them, basically?
So yeah, I mean, I'm not really a disciplinarian. We have a staff for that. So that's like the education team and risk
Mm-hmm.
management team. But, if there is an incident and, the chapters typically feel more comfortable talking to me because we interact in person as well as like multiple times throughout the semester. So, if the chapter feels inclined to like tell me the situation that's going on or the university reports something to me, then I'll just pass that along to my higher up.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the disciplinary stuff.
You're
So
not
fun
you're
though.
not bringing the paddle.
no, no, that's not my role at all. So,
That's kind
but
of
yeah, I've
cool.
been doing it. So yeah, and outside of just meeting with the guys, I'll meet with campus professionals. So whether that be their fraternity and sorority life staff, a graduate a graduate assistant, or even I've had to meet with like the dean of students on a smaller university's campus because they don't have the staff to like obviously have a full-time Greek life professional.
Mm.
Um, so I'll do that, and then as well as meet with like chapter advisors and local alumni, and how they feel about the chapter. What can I do to make them feel in a better place than when they were like before I came, and all these different things. So I mean, it's an umbrella of stuff. Um, it's every day is a little different. I mean, there's like some similarities, obviously, but every campus is different. Every chapter is different. Every
Hmm.
student you interact with is different. So, and you're only in town for like 3 to 4 days, so you're really trying to build these like relationships really fast. So you got to be able to feel comfortable to easily step into an environment and like get to know the
Yeah.
guys.
I mean, you're in the people
Um,
business for sure.
yeah. Um, so yeah, and I mean, I've been doing this now for this is I just finished up my first year of travel. So thankfully, my second semester was a lot easier because I'd already visited all the schools. I already
Mm.
knew some of the guys. I already knew some of their issues. I already knew some of the things they did really well. And so we already had like the building blocks in place to kind of move forward and like actually like make change and like take steps in the right direction. Um,
Well, nice.
so,
Nice,
but
yeah.
yeah, it's been good. It's hard. It definitely has its moments where it's like, dang, this is bad. Like you're driving everywhere. Um, you're switching locations every 3 days. Weather could be bad. You miss home. You're on your
Yeah.
own
And
traveling.
that
So
was my.
it's like,
That's kind of been thinking about it. Tossing around some questions in my head, and I think that's the really the biggest one. Is what do you think is your biggest challenge with your job now?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just generally going to be, traveling. It
Mm.
like
Mm.
is fun, but it also has its like difficulties in the sense of, you're on your own. Everything especially for me, I'd never been to half of these areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all of my friends are back in Georgia or in Charlotte. And it's like, sometimes you really just wish to, be able to hang out with those guys, and those opportunities aren't always there. So, um, thankfully when we come back together, whether it be for, in office or over the summer, it's like a family reunion every time we come back. Everybody's just so happy to see each other. So,
So you're saying it's based.
because
It's a
like
lot. It's kind of
going
like a
through,
waiting game, a little bit.
yeah. So, I mean, like, obviously, we all got back together today, and, we're all really happy to see each other and hang out. So, but yeah, it's good. It's a younger person's job though. So like,
Yeah, for sure.
you're not going to do this up. It's not a career, so
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
expectation is, you do it for, at most 2 years. So
That I
Okay.
mean that's the expectation from like your management.
yes, it's 2 years.
And do they
So,
do they just kind of expect you to have something else figured out by that point?
so there's
I mean,
opportunities to like network with alumni and different things on the road. And, they are able to give you, like contact information for someone in your respective field that you're like interested in.
Mm.
So, I want to do like sales or like corporate recruitment. So, they were like, hey, you need to meet this person. He'd be a
mm.
good fit. And at that point, they're giving you the tools to essentially, you know, have a job lined up. It's just like how you interact with the alumni and different things like that. And,
Kind of
Gives
gives you
you a
like some experience too while you're
yeah.
kind of
exactly.
So
building up your resume.
yeah. And then like same thing with like, if you want to go to grad school, you're interacting with campus professionals. One of my coworkers, he's going to Virginia Tech in the fall, and he's working for one of our alumni. he's got a graduate assistant position there, so he's going to grad school pretty much for free, which is really nice. So
Wow, that's super nice.
so yeah, if you do it right, it definitely like opens up some doors for opportunity.
So speaking
But
of
how it,
speaking of doing it right, I've been trying to find a good place to kind of squeeze this in. But now that we've kind of heard your story, we know where you are now. What would you say to somebody that was in your shoes or similar shoes, say senior in high school, who's they're tackling all of these discussions, all of these internal battles and stuff? What would you say to them?
I mean, yeah, I just think like be genuine,
Mm,
be real with people. I think that's like the biggest thing is, you you typically, if you're going to be real with someone and, speak from the heart and show that you really care, I think that like that's really what's going to be what matters at the end of the day. I mean, you know, just being genuine and authentic and being yourself. And I know that sounds like super cliche, but it's the truth, um,
Yeah.
typically like, I mean, I'd like to say, just doing the little things for people,
mm,
striking up a conversation in a coffee shop or like, doing different things like that. I mean, you never know who you're meeting, that's just one of those things where, that could be your next employer. That could be your best man in your wedding. Like you
mm-hmm.
never know. So it's just, I think really having the opportunity to build friendships and, just like kind of like what you guys are doing, just like listening to somebody's story, what makes them who they are. I don't see the point in going through life and not talking to anybody and just kind of keeping to yourself. There's just so much out there between traveling and doing the things I do. I think that I have a more broad perspective of people and different things like that. I'm not in a, shell of, Rabun
Mm.
County or LaGrange. It's, all these different places I visit and all these different people I meet. And I don't know.
Yeah, you're building up that network.
So I think networking really in business, I think that's probably, I mean, grades obviously are important too, and being able to, build a resume. But at the end of the day, like the person that's going to be hiring you, it's a lot easier, for you to have that personal connection to someone than, going on like Monster or,
Indeed.
Right.
Indeed
Yeah.
or all these different things. Like, at the end of the day, like obviously where you went to school is somewhat important if it's like an Ivy League school. But I mean, generally speaking, like cool, they have a degree, cool, they had a good GPA. They didn't do anything, really wrong. I think it's more so building that connection and showing that you can do the work. Um, I think that's really what it is.
I
Hmm.
think that kind of goes hand in hand with what I say a lot of the time when people, ask me what I did or sort of how I viewed that process going from high school to college and college to the professional world or the real world was that there's always an element of luck to things. And the people who tend to do the best in life are prepared enough and have a strong enough foundation to capitalize on luck when it presents itself. So when you talk about networking and always being genuine and open with people, that's opening those doors. And when you
Yeah.
have that foundation you talked about, like when you have, so, in extracurriculars in school checked off, athletics checked off, your education checked off, you're prepared for when you finally have had that conversation with somebody and they've opened that door for you, you're ready to take it. So I like to hear that. So it's kind of aligns with my philosophy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing too, is I mean, at the end of the day, you know, um, my like travel baseball coach used to always say this to me, like, control what you can control. So, I mean, you can control your mentality.
Mm,
You can control who you are on the day-to-day basis, how you present yourself, how you talk to people, all these different things. If they don't like you, they don't like you. And that's just it.
yeah.
Like, why sit here and worry about it or, be scared of, oh, I don't want to talk to this guy. He seems mean. Like,
Mm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that in
I,
like people really struggle with that roadblock. I mean, and I get it. Not everyone is as extroverted as I am. So, um, definitely
yeah.
like But once you like overcome that roadblock of, I guess fear meeting someone new, I think that really, like you said, kind of just like opens up like a door of like opportunity. Um, so yeah, but
I totally agree. Just coming from a person that's always been pretty introverted and still pretty introverted. Thankfully, the military college and stuff experience that I had kind of brought me out of my shell a little bit, but I still at times do have that struggle with trying to get those connections. Like when you just walk into a room with total strangers and being able to go up to people and introduce yourself.
The
Sorry,
pain
my
of being
microphone's.
introverted.
yeah, and that's the thing is with this job, it's pretty much you're like forced to talk to people. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not like, you have to overcome that roadblock relatively quickly. A new environment with nobody you've ever met, and you're sitting here trying to build friendships and come from a position of respect and all these different things. You got to be able to think quickly and adjust
Mm.
quickly. Um, due to just like the different factors you face on like kind of like the day to day. No day is really the same with this job. There's funny stories, there's good stories, there's terrible stories. It's interesting to say the least, and it's a unique job. I mean, it's so hard to explain to someone unless they seriously have some time to like sit
Yeah.
down and talk about it. Because like at the court, you're like, oh, he just like goes around and like hangs out with guys, and he doesn't really like do much work. But like at the end of the day, like there's a lot more that like goes into it. But like it's hard to explain when you're like, oh yeah, I'm a leadership consultant for my fraternity. Like
Mm-hmm.
no one really knows what that means, unless you're in Greek life, obviously. So um, every organization has a similar role, but they're traveling and everything looks a little different. We have, I think, the
Yeah.
largest fraternity staff out of any national organization. So we put a lot of emphasis on like people service and like different things like that. And, trying to make that face-to-face contact is really key for us. So,
I mean, you've done a very good job, outlining, I think a pretty unique timeline from high school, from high school athlete halfway through college to basically taking Greek life and making that your job, your profession for right now. That's
yeah.
definitely a story I haven't heard before.
Yeah, it's unique. I'll say that. And, I had a really interesting conversation with. I was flying home, I think for Easter, and I was this older woman,
Mm-hmm.
came up and started talking to me, and she's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Casters, North Carolina, blah blah, a small little town up in the mountains." She's like, "Oh yeah, that's like where my vacation home is. I'm from New Orleans."
Mm-hmm.
New
Nice.
Orleans, New Orleans is one of the places I visit, so I was able to like connect about like different restaurants and all these different
Mm-hmm.
things. And like, I have all this like small talk, things that I can bring up now because I'm well traveled and making that easy connection once again. And, she was super nice and gave me her business card. It's like,
Oh wow.
yeah.
Sweet, yeah. That's
So
how you
it's
do
just
it.
like, it's just like one of those things where you never know. That's like what I said earlier. Like you never know who you're meeting. So,
Yeah.
You got a question ever? You sound
I
like you're
wanted to. I
itching for
wanted
a
to.
question.
Yeah. Well, I sorry because my headphone just kind of cut out, and so I couldn't finish my question or whatever. But what I was trying, what I was trying to get at was maybe some advice for those kind of people that they really kind of want to be able to push those boundaries and stuff. Like, what kind of advice can you give to kids that need to, because I think networking is very important. What sort of things can you give them, like steps maybe to start becoming more social, more outgoing,
I mean,
if
just,
anything?
yeah, I mean, I think it really just kind of starts with like, getting involved with the community, you know, just getting invested in all these different things, always don't be afraid to try something new. I think that's really like square one
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. You know, not being okay with feeling uncomfortable. Like that's definitely something we like say all the time at work. It's like, if you're okay with being uncomfortable, the majority of the time, you're going to be okay. Like,
That's good. That's good.
so, yeah, I mean, like, there's so many awkward things. Like, staying in a fraternity house, you definitely interesting situations and different things like that. And, um, you know, it's so funny some of the stuff these kids will tell you. Um,
They open up a little too much, maybe.
yeah, a little too much. I mean, but at the end of the day, I mean, they feel comfortable with me, and thankfully, we can build that friendship and hopefully improve their chapter moving forward. Some of the groups I work with have came a really long way since I started working with them. And, obviously it's a product of their hard work, but like, I'd like to think that I helped contribute along the way as well. So, like you'll get texts from some of the guys and just be like, thanks, man, for all you do. Like the chapter's super appreciative of everything you've done. And, little stuff like that just goes like a really long way. But yeah, kind of going back.
That's always a good feeling.
Yeah, but like going back to kind of your networking thing, it's just like, I would just say, don't be afraid to strike up small talk, or, if you're like sitting there at a coffee shop, and you're sitting there by yourself, just kind of sipping on coffee, not really interacting with someone. I mean,
I do that
this
too
sounds,
much.
this sounds,
I don't do
this
that.
sounds cheesy, but like, just be like, hey, do you mind me like sitting with you? Little things like that. And I know that sounds like kind
When
of
they say
awkward.
yes. I'm sorry.
I mean, but really though, like what's the worst thing they're going to say? No. Then you can just go back to sitting by yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
That's right.
Yeah, and then they look like the dick.
yeah,
Pretty
so,
much.
yeah. And like, that's the other thing too. I think that another thing is like people are afraid to be told no. People don't want to hear, like people want to hear what they want to hear,
Mhm.
And I think once you're able
Of
to,
course.
accept denial to some extent, I mean, I think that helps in that roadblock as well with like networking and different things like that. So,
Right. Yeah, totally. For sure.
I like that. So I'm gonna try no see if you agree with me a little bit on. It seems like your biggest parting words are being very genuine and open with people, being able to take that potential no and open up with people, network, but still, all in all, you're being yourself, you're being authentic, and because of that, doors are gonna open up.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing is, one of my coworkers always says this. It's like, you know, the best story you can tell is yours, So it's like, if you're able to just sit there and tell your story, it's unique, it's yours, and you can make it, obviously, and like, that's a conversation piece. Even for someone
Mm-hmm.
introverted, like, where you came from, what your life story is. And people are just going to be generally, interested in you just like opening up to them and talking about life.
Kind of like we are right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
So I've asked you a couple questions, and never. Do you have any more questions for him?
I was just thinking. No, I don't think so. I think he did a really good job of covering everything. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think you did a really good job telling your story, like you said. So, we're
yeah,
all incredible. We're all very thankful that you take, a good solid chunk of time to talk with us and walk through your story, and hopefully someone out there will hear your story and feel that they're not alone and you've helped somebody. That's what I like to think.
right.
but yeah.
Some guidance.
So yeah, no, I mean, it was fun. I'd never really done anything like this. So,
All right. Well,
I mean, I'm not a pod master like you guys. So,
well,
y'all
we
are
all
some
got to
y'all
start
are
somewhere,
seasoned
right?
veterans.
Yeah,
Yeah, y'all
we've
are
got a long
seasoned.
way to go.
Well, now that we're on what is episode 3, and I think we're pretty much ready to say they know we're pretty good at our craft.
Oh yeah. I mean,
we're like pros now.
definitely giving you 5 stars on iTunes. So
Well, Ryan, thank you very much. I think it's a good time to sign off. So just to round everything out once more, I'm David Todd.
Every Yates.
and I'm Ryan Oliver Gajda.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Talk to y'all later.